Good morning, ladies. Good morning, gentlemen. Mr. Ogunlana. Wednesday, October 25th, 6:37 a.m. So I want to continue my journey in dealing with limiting beliefs that I have of myself. Again, I'm listening to the audiobook of Vic Johnson's Goal Setting, 13 Secrets of World-Class Achievers. Beautiful work. It's helping me to see all of the different ways that I have thought myself into a paper bag. And I mean, rolled the bag up, threw it in the trash, and deadbolted it in terms of how I've been living my life. And I'm sure that if you're listening to this, you can agree that there are ways in which you think that limits the money that you attract, the people you meet, and in general, the lifestyle that you live. So I want to take a moment and be transparent, like I said I was. In his book, in his work, Vic Johnson, 13 Secrets to Success, he says, write down your top 5 to 10 limiting beliefs. So I'm, just for the sake of full disclosure, I am just going to convey once and for all these weird thoughts of myself that I've been holding on to like a baby holds on to its blanket. Number 1, and I'm just going to deal with this one at a time. I'm going to spin this audio log dealing with this first one. And the first one is, I won't make enough money to pay my bills or keep my house, and will end up losing it and either live on the streets or at my family's house. So let me just deal with that for a second. Because also in his work, he says, write it down, this limiting belief, challenge the belief, argue with the belief, find examples that disproves the belief, and then create a positive statement that is the direct opposite of the belief. So again, let me deal with this whole I won't make enough money business to pay my bills. It's almost, the fact that I wrote this down is empowering. Empowering. Because I actually thought, I've been thinking this over and over again, and it like rears its ugly head every time I'm unsuccessful on a project, or I lose a project or some money, and I find myself being real tight with money, and because I'm trying to keep this house and pay, and I look and I'm sitting in this house. This house is beautiful. Now let's just talk about this house for a second and why this house is really the center of attention at this present time. I grew up in this house. So many memories in this house. It's changed. This house is a house that my grandfather purchased for my mother. I remember the first time I came into this house. It actually had the same hardwood floors that I'm looking at right now. But when I think I was maybe 1 or 2, possibly 3, and I remember coming in and I had been given a bucket to put water down the drains to start flushing the pipes, and just thinking about so many memories in this house. Just so many memories. I could just spend a lot of time, and I am, as a matter of fact, I'm spending a little bit just kind of dealing with this house and why it is so crucial for me to keep it. You know, why I feel like it's so crucial for me to keep it. You know, why I feel like I'm going to lose it for some reason. So like I said, it was about 1 or 3, somewhere in there. And at the time, my father was still living. He and my mother were married. And I can remember my father working. I think he had some sort of job, either dealing with lumber. I remember speaking to my uncle before he passed that my father used to work for thinking of the name, it'll come back to me. He used to work for this lumber yard based here in Atlanta. And before I think it was Frank G. Lake or something like that. I can look at my notes to see. But in any event, he lost his job because they used to have parties, and he, as a matter of fact, my father was he was an engineer. He used to take radios and fix them, and he made his own radio receiver, and made his own speakers and things of that nature. And they used to have parties here all the time. I remember that. And yes, they used to have parties. They used to blast that music really loud. And I remember the house just shaking because he used to just blast like Gap Band and all that kind of stuff, man. And so I was raised on that kind of music, you know, the 70s, you know, the 70s kind of music, Gap Band and all of that kind of stuff. So, so in any event, he lost the gig, and I would just remember there was a dark period that I had went through in this house with my mom. I have 2 other siblings, a brother and a sister, my mother and my father. My mother, she's a hustler. She always worked, had a job, 2, 3 of them. And I know that's why my father loved her, because she definitely wasn't one of, you know, the unfortunate young women that don't do anything with their life. She definitely had a lot and still have a lot going for her in terms of talents and gifts and just all around hustle. You know, she could stand to teach a lot of young ladies today on just how to pick themselves up, regardless of where they find themselves, what situation they find themselves in, and do the work in order to raise children, in order to have and be successful. So, dark period. The dark period was he lost the job, couldn't find a job. He turned to drugs. And for what I can tell from my uncle, he tried many drugs. I think he tried, cocaine, crack. I think he was on heroin at one point in time. And I think from what I could remember, I think he was on heroin. And he ended up really being on heroin and having a really bad habit. And I can remember times coming into this house and things being, tossed around. I mean, I had put it in one of my books, and I'm going to rename the book. The first name, the title that I came out with was Stress, and I put it in that book. And then I wrote another book called Rich and Fat that I'm probably going to change the name of. And I kind of dealt with some of my life story in terms of how I grew up and my family and some of the very, destructive images that I saw coming into this house. Clothes everywhere, holes in the wall, mother on the couch or standing up, pacing the floor with a butcher knife, father nowhere to be found. And I could just remember feeling helpless. I remember just feeling so helpless. So where do I get this whole idea that I'm going to, I have to work really hard to keep my house. I have to work and it's going to take a whole lot. And I'm afraid that I might lose it. And, I may not have, money or food or, some utilities may be turned. I get it from my childhood. This is how I was raised. That's how I was raised in a place where scarcity ran rampant. Where fighting, where doubt, where fear ran rampant. Do I have the skills to pay the bills? Because now I'm looking for examples that disproves this statement. Do I have the skills? What I can say is that I've changed. My life has changed dramatically over time because I have a son now. And I want to play a role in my son's life as a direct result of my father not being there in a significant degree in my life, because his decision to live his life in the way that he did, to have drugs as a means to survive, he decided not to play a significant role in my life. And so as a result, I've decided to play a very significant role in my son's life. And so, because who am I? What I used to do is I used to take software projects, I'm learning how to speak slowly and convey my points in Atlanta and other places, physically be on site, physically work these projects. And they came with a certain amount in terms of an hourly rate, at least double, in terms of the hourly rate that I, have been able to attract to myself as I work from home. And I did that for about 13 years. And I'm still relatively young. In software years, I'm 31. And as I sit back and think, I've changed. So my fear has become more evident because I don't make as much now, or I haven't been able to attract the same amount, and things are a little bit more scarce right now just because I'm in a new position. But one thing I can say is I have slowly been making this transition over the last 2 or 3 years of my life. I have reached a point where I was disgusted. And I'm just going to be frank. I was really disgusted with how my career and the path of my career, where it had been going, and the kinds of clients that I've had. I've had some distasteful clients. Being PC and learning how to be PC, had some really distasteful clients. Not gonna name any names. And as a matter of fact, most of it just seemed like really the software. Whew, the kind of clients that I've had, maybe that's going to be for another vlog or audio log. So anyway, so I've, done it for about 10 years and had more downs than ups. And I think the last 5 years I've had more success on projects because if I was thinking that I was, not qualified, I wouldn't have made it as long as I did. I've had clients and been in situations where I literally didn't have anything to eat, but still went on site, worked the project, brought the money back, even though the money was being stolen from me. And I'm not going to name any names. Maybe that's going to be for other audio logs. So if there's any consultant out there, freelance consultant out there who's listening to this, I feel your pain. Trust me, I have many stories. So have been transitioning towards this more of a freelance, remote, cloud-based consultancy. And it's come with its ups and its downs. And I think that's where this whole idea of scarcity has come in and has pervaded my thoughts. What I was about to say a few moments ago was, even though I have this prevailing thought, I've been able to live in this house and pay my bills and still have enough food to eat, have money to still live and have my way in my life for the last, what was the last project I had that I actually had to go on site? I think it was like May this year. It's October. So that's June, July, August, September. It's about 5, maybe 6 months. And I've actually been out of the country since. I went to Cuba. I've been traveling to different states, Chicago, Miami. And I've actually been living really good. My son's been here. The lights have, and I'm thankful, grateful, because there has not been a time where I have not, in the last 6 months, where I haven't had. There hasn't been a time where I haven't been able to pay, the mortgage on this house. There hasn't been a time, and I'm grateful that there hasn't been a time that I haven't had enough money to put gas in my car. I've always had enough. And I think the reason why it's just been enough has been because I've had this prevailing belief that's all, that's the best that I could do, is just have enough. Because one other belief, and this is birthed out of this limiting belief of me not having enough money in general, is that I have this belief that I have to work really, really, really hard in order to make ends meet. Again, that's birthed out of this childhood that I had. I was raised in a house that we just had enough. And for me, there was some kind of spirituality that was birthed out of that. Because we were able to be happy during that time. But what I can't say is I can't say that I know that happiness is birthed out of scarcity. I think happiness comes from the inside, and regardless of what one may have or what I had when I was coming up, we were happy because of the people. My mother, my sister, my brother, we were happy people. It had nothing to do with the money that we had. We were just raised to be happy, and that's interesting. And so that's what I was taught. But that doesn't mean that I can't have more than enough. And that doesn't mean that I got to work hard and it be difficult. That was just what my experience was. So there again, I'm grateful that I've had enough. And because I'm challenging myself and raising the bar, the fear is I've only been able to have enough. How dare I want more? As if there is some limitation in this life. Like I've only been earmarked only enough. And what's interesting enough, the law of attraction says the prevailing thought that I have, that's what's going to be my reality. And so my prevailing thought has been just enough. That's, just enough. That's all I know. And my whole thing is because of that, I've been only given just enough. So my challenge to myself is this. And so before I get into that, also in the work, there were a few questions to challenge this prevailing belief of not having enough money. Why do I believe that I can't have more? And the main reason why I believe I can't have more is because I think that the work has to equal what I desire in terms of what I'm desiring in terms of having more than enough, because we're talking about a few $1,000s here, which if for all of my listeners, myself included, if you own a house, you're spending at least $2,000 a month. And I mean, that's just like basic 2-bedroom in a, semi-urban area, city, in the South, Atlanta, maybe Mobile, Nashville, Charlotte, maybe $2,000 to $3,000. And that's you living basic, that's you meeting your basic needs, paying your bills, especially if you have a car. That's meeting your basic needs. That's me meeting my basic needs here, $2,000 to $3,000. And that's having the food, paying the bills, and being able to have some pocket change, right? And so more than enough is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and on up. And see, I had that working on site, but what after I had did the math, and this is what I challenge all myself, and I did it for me, and whoever else listens to this, I challenge you to write down how much you make today working the job that you have. Because this is another limiting belief that I had, that I still kind of have this, and I'm gonna be challenging this, and so I challenge. I'm gonna continue to challenge myself through these audio tapes, and I will be challenging whoever listens. Write it down, how much you make working your job, even if you think you racking it up, stacking it up. Write it down, and then write down how much you spend. Gas, bills, food, clothes. I'm talking about the whole thing, and that's the Southern coming out of me. That whole thing. Write it down. And what I had found is I actually make more money, and I'm able to keep more money just by working from home. Now, it may not be the same amount in terms of, but it will eventually be. But right now, it's not the same amount in terms of, the 8s, the 9s, the 10s, the 15s, and we're talking 1,000. But I'm able to take home and keep way more. So the ratio is what I'm speaking to. So do that. And so why do I believe I can? Outside of this whole thought that I have to work really hard in order to get a lot more, that's it. That's really the only reason why I believe I can. I also have some other beliefs that affect it, but I'm not going to get into these other beliefs because these other beliefs are going to make for some really good sessions. Trust me. Number 2 is there a rational reason to believe such a thing? And we say rational, and I mean like practically speaking. Is there a practical reason? Is there proof? No, I don't have, because like I said, being at the house, doing what I'm doing, I went back and forth. Now, what I will say is I dipped into some of my savings. I've been able to live off my savings, but what I can say this is I was lazy for like the first, and this is just me, this full disclosure, and I will continue to challenge myself and all of those who listen. Just be honest with yourself. I'm going to be honest. The first 3-4 months, I was lazy, chilling, partying, just not really taking it serious. Not at all. And, so that I can't use that as valid data because I guess the validity comes from the honesty, which is I was being lazy. I would stay up all night, for example, be out all night, get up late, 10, 11, 12 in the morning, it's damn near afternoon by the time I get up, be having to rush to do all of my, daily chores, operations in order to maintain, and then just dip in that young savings, you know what I'm saying? And keep it pushing. Now, had I had this same hustle I have to date back then, 3-4 months ago, would I have had to dip into those savings? No. Because what I can say today is that my hustle is far greater. Like I'm, because of where I am financially, my hustle is far greater. I've learned so much just in the few grand that I've spent in my savings just over these 3-4 months. And these are all things that as I listen to this, I'm going to be making note and going back to like how I, just even over the years, if I go back farther, like maybe 5 to 10 years, over 5 to 10 years, I've definitely spent $1 million. And that's not an exaggeration. I've spent $1 million, and I have, what I thought, failed in many things in spending that $1 million because of these projects. I've had projects $70, $80 an hour, working 40 hours a week, over the last 10 years. You add that up, and not, just and what did I do with that money? Oh, I put some of that in some of these books I told you about earlier, and I'm going to be talking about it also in these audio tapes, these sessions. And so, going back to the question, is there a rational, is there a practical reason why I believe such a thing? No. Because even after the 4 months where I was dipping in the savings, I know it was at least 2 or 3 where I actually was on my grind and I actually hustled, got online to websites like Upwork, Fiverr, and others. If you don't know about Upwork and you're a freelance consultant, you're not a freelance consultant. If you don't know about Fiverr and other sites like that and you call yourself a freelance consultant, you're not a freelance consultant. There are websites out there right now where you can get on with basic skills and make money today. And we're going to be getting into that too, over these sessions. And so I got on my grind, and because I got on my grind, I was able to pay bill. I mean, like really get a couple $1,000s in like 2 or 3, maybe less than 3 weeks. And, and that's just me being comfortable with it, working like 20 hours because I'm raising my son full time. So, rational reason to believe such a thing? No, I know I've done it. I'm still here. The light's on. I give thanks. I'm able to record these audio sessions, and I look at this hardwood floor, man, I've made some really good investments. So we deal with that too. I've made some good investments over the last 2 years that has given me this opportunity. So, another thing that I want to say to myself and continue to make good investments. If you're listening, it's good investments that's gonna see to it that you're successful. It's the poor investments that equal failure over time. So no, I don't have any rational reason to believe such a thing. The third question is, what if a loved one held this belief? Would I support them, or would I want them to change the belief for their own benefit? Me, I already know. And most of my family, especially if they're listening to this, they could attest that I'm the main one trying to change their limiting beliefs and habits that are destructive. I used to be the person that would pull up, and if if we get to talking and you start telling me why, things aren't working for you or how things didn't work for you, and you start, basically complaining, I'm pretty much cutting it short, and I'm pretty much challenging you, pushing you in a way that will help you. And so if a person told me, if I went over to my family member's house and they started telling me that they don't think that they'll have enough money to pay their bills and they think they're going to lose their house and, be on the street, and I'm be like, well, hold up. Wait a minute. Hold up. That's not true. Why? First of all, I pulled up to your house right now. So if that was the case, you would already be on the street. You see what I'm saying? And so, yes, I would want them to change it because that's just fear, And so I've allowed a fear and doubt to become a belief. See, this is what I would say to them is don't allow your fears and doubts to become beliefs, because when they become beliefs, then they become a prison. And I'm just going to leave it there because as you can see, I get excited. So this is what I would say to them. Don't allow these fears to become a belief. So yes, I would want them to change it. So I would deal with the fear. So the fear is I'm afraid that I won't get the money to pay my bills. But again, is there any rational reason to have the fear? No, outside of these other limiting beliefs that I have in terms of my self-worth and value, because that's really what I'm talking about, is self-worth, value, and how much self-worth do I believe I have? How much do I value myself? And how much do I believe that regardless of wherever I find myself, that I can attract it? See, these are things that I would say to loved ones. So number 3, it's a dead giveaway. I would definitely want them to change. So let's move on to 4. If there's no good reason why I should believe this, why should I continue to act and behave as if it were true? It's a good question. It's a really good question. It's a really good question. And I have no reason to continue to act and believe as if it was true. I'm going to come back and listen to this. And I challenge all the people that's listening to come back and listen to this. Because I feel like that I have arrived somewhere that if I didn't write this down, like I told you, it is really empowering. I'm going to get that word correct. Empowering. Gotta get that word correct. So y'all just send me some good energy and vibes, because I need to just work on the English language and how I speak. It's empowering to write this down because I see that, again, there is no reason to continue to behave like it's not going to happen. And let's just think, okay, what's the worst case scenario? Because my whole thing is the worst case scenario is, I'm past the deadline, people sitting waiting with their hand out. And my whole thing is, all right, well, they sit with their hand out, we'll make it happen. I just know that I know me, and I know who I am, and I know my value and my self-worth. Again, I know that if me, I'm going to get it. It's going to happen. I think what I have to begin to do is, again, and here's the 5th one. What is a new empowering belief that I could use to replace this limiting one, that that no matter what, I can attract, and I am worth all of the money I'm worth it. I'm worth whatever it's needed in order to keep this place. Why? Because I've invested. I've made good investments in this house. I've made a great investments. I've continued to make great investments in myself. I actually work. Like I'm not one of those people that talk only. I not only talk, I read, I listen. I would consider myself a student, and I spend much more time reading, listening, learning than I do working. Say that again. I spend much more time reading, listening, learning than I do working. And so as I do the work, I know, because of all of the research and all of the learning that I've done, that I could be even more effective. I've been able to attract this money that's necessary in order to maintain this place and my life to a certain degree. Now, it hadn't surpassed it, just because up till now, I never thought that I could possibly surpass this, but now I'm going to be, because of this new statement of worth and value, I am going to surpass it, because with the small amount of effort that I've been doing right now, I've been able to maintain this place. So even if the worst case scenario happens, which, knock on wood, we'll never get there, and if it does, I know that I can, tap into, and I will be continuing to tap into this great power and wealth that I have on the inside of me to maintain this place. And it's going to be more than enough, because I'm a more than enough kind of man. So you need to say this to yourself: you are a more than enough person. Like your value and your worth is more than you think it is. I let this is just a fear because I'm doing this by myself. That's okay. Let's just deal with the fear once again. I'm doing it by myself. So shouts out to all of the single parents that are freelance consultants out there. I'm speaking to you right now. I feel your pain because I am doing this by myself, raising my son. And it's scary sometimes because not many people around me do this. And so because of that, I have to read, I have to listen, I have to watch things every day to substitute for that. I know that because of these audio sessions and because of my blog and other things, of the apps that will be bringing out and will be telling you all about and bringing on the market. And as I continue to network and build with people, as I get over these limiting beliefs, I know that it won't be as lonely. So, dealing with that fear of not knowing, because that's really what it is. If we really get to the bottom of it, it's really a fear of not knowing. And do I have what it takes to cut the mustard, so to speak? Of course I do. Because if it's something in the future, I get this from an elder in this community. They told me this and I'll share it. If it's the future, this is how you defeat that whole future negative talk. If it's something about the future, right? Because you're living in the present. Why don't you make a story up about yourself that is empowering? Why don't you make a story up about yourself that is constructive? So the story that I'm going to start telling myself, even though it may not seem right now, I know it's because I have to form the belief by constantly thinking and looking at it and listening to this, is that I will make it because money will come from every direction, because I will do the work, I will meet the people, and I will put the energy out there in terms of a positive mental attitude such that the universe and everything in it will respond positively and constructively to my expectation. So once again, if it's something about the future, why don't you make a story up that is empowering? Once again, I will have everything that is necessary to pay every bill that I have, to afford to purchase everything that I desire, that I will meet every person that's necessary, every person that is compatible to me and compatible to my dreams, hopes, and desires, that will allow me to be successful in not only maintaining this house, but also getting other homes and expanding my portfolio in such a way that this problem will never rear its head in my life or in the life of my son or any of his children ever again. So I'm gonna do like my dad told me a long time ago, and I challenge you to do this. Wherever you are, take a second. Look at yourself in the mirror. And if your head is low, raise it.